It's clear to see from the rise in data centers that this world is getting infinitely more complex. They're just rolling these things in fast. And what the controllers, the enemies of freedom are really counting on is our ignorance of technology. You know, there's a lot of people in this community, in the freedom community, that'd rather not deal with technology. And I got it, I totally understand. But the problem with that is, if you look into the history of conflicts, those that fail to adopt the incoming technology are overcome by the ones that do adopt the incoming technology. So you just have to look into the past of that. So way back, it was a catapult. And then later on, it was the muskets, machine guns, mechanized warfare, steel shipbuilding, airplanes. But the same dynamic played out each time. And that is those that failed to adopt the incoming technology were overcome by it. So now the incoming technology is blockchain and AI. And the two can go together pretty good to help us fortify our freedoms and our way of life. But what we need to do is start learning about this. So in these upcoming videos, I'll do my best to explain all this in layman's terms. Because I'm not really a tech-minded kind of person, but I've made myself learn as much as I can about it. And this reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by Andy Frisella, and that is, make personal development your ultimate rebellion. So getting better every day, learning a bit more. Taking some of that screen time you use for Facebook and endless scrolling, and use it to learn a new skill. Because even though AI is going to take a lot of jobs from us, it's also going to create a lot of jobs. It's going to create lots of jobs, but we got to be nimble and agile to see where the free market winds are taking us. And that's one of the advantages we have as a loose-knit, decentralized community over the hierarchical structures of governance, is that they lack that nimbleness. They're bogged down with bureaucracy. So that in itself provides us some leverage. And another thing that works in our favor too is I really believe that the free market is on the side of freedom. And I believe the free market will eventually optimize for abundance, security, freedom, privacy. But the catch is, we've got to learn some new skills. If you're in tech already, if you know how to do websites and stuff like that, you still got to upgrade your skills. AI is taking a lot of these web design jobs, a lot of these jobs in marketing and image making, video creation. So we're going to be very agile and nimble. The best thing we could do, though, is to use AI. And that might seem kind of a contradiction in light of these data center protests, but the data centers that they're creating are mostly for surveillance. To use surveillance and monitor every aspect of life right now. This is similar to the system that they have in China right now. And it works in conjunction with the digital ID, the digital yuan, and a social credit system. This system has caused thousands and thousands and thousands of youth to be sleeping in the streets, effectively homeless. Not because they're too poor or hooked on drugs or mental issues, but rather they've been frozen out the system. If you don't fit all their criteria, just how they want you to, then they'll limit your ability to buy things you need, to buy fuel, to buy train tickets, and eventually even be able to secure a place. Hence, all these people are homeless. So it's a definite issue that we need to address. We're heading into a time that some call Technofeudelism. Now we know the history of feudalism. Back in the day, the feudal lord, the king, was the one that had all the land and all the resources. And then he had all the peasants that farmed that land. So we had no middle class. It was either super rich or super poor and nothing in the middle. And we're going back to that. The middle class is being slowly eradicated. Now we're at a very interesting juncture in our journey. If we fail to reach the upper crust, then our family tree will be essentially severed, really. What we do now will determine the future of our kids and our future generation. Opting out is not an option. It's not one of those either or sort of things. If you don't, you'll sink. So you either sink or swim. So tech isn't as complicated as someone make it out to be. If you spend about an hour a day, hour and a half a day upgrading your skills, In a year, you'll be super good at it, super smart. I've only been at it for a couple of years, few years, and I've learned so much. It's been incredible. And then think of the alternatives. Well, this is even better than having to be stuck going to school, paying for school and going to school for 4 years. So learning on your own without having to spend money on a course to create a career, a stream of revenue that allows you the flexibility of being self-employed, allows you the flexibility of determining how you get paid, because that'll be very important too. We'll all have to be self-employed going into the future. So if you're working for any kind of centralized big corporation, or heaven forbid the government, they'll dictate how you get paid, and they'll also dictate the deductions that are coming off it. And what they'll do with that is slowly nudge you into the digital ID system. Can't have that. Can't have that. We have to be proactive if we want to dodge digital ID. They're counting on people being reactive. And, I hear that a lot from people. It's like, oh, when they bring that in, I'm going to do so-and-so and so-and-so. Well, by then, it'll be too late. You got to work on your life raft. That's the main thing. So a good way of dealing with the future, anticipating the future, is working out the logical steps on how things will pan out, how things will flow. Now, this is kind of like anthropology, or the lens of the future, looking through the lens of the future. But if you're looking through anthropology, you can often see how technological advancements have shaped society. And with that, that gives you a foresight on how to deal with the upcoming changes. So in this world of technofeudalism, it'll be comparable to current South Africa. So we have in South Africa is you have super rich people with incredibly poor people surrounding them. And I don't mean the kind of poor people we have here that still get welfare checks, and a lot of them have cell phones. They order skip the dishes into the woods. Yeah, it won't be like that. These will be like real poor people. They don't have, the sandwich handout at the street corner or anything like that. And those kind of, in that country, in South Africa, what people have done is they live in fortified dwellings, fortified homes within fortified communities with security guards and their whole police force that protects them. That's what it's like. And we'll have to think about security in that kind of way going forward. To predict how society will collapse exactly, there's a couple of factors we have to look at. The difference between a developed nation experiencing issues, rolling blackouts, and that sort of thing is far different than a developing country that's experiencing those same issues. So in a developing nation, they've had rolling blackouts. They're used to be able to cook without having a refrigerator. They've adapted to it, basically. Well, in our modern society, with all the refrigeration we have and our right on time shipping, everything's very precarious, very fragile, and any disruption in that is going to cause huge chaos. And that's the sort of thing that we need to be prepared for. So this goes back to building our life raft, getting together with others, seeking out others that are like-minded, working on self-sufficiency, improving our tech skills, doing things that enhance our perseverance, our personal discipline. Those will all be critical going forward. One of my favorite quotes is from Anthony Robbins' 1980 book, Unlimited Power. And this quote provides a bit of a snapshot, like a bird's eye view of future forecasting, one of my favorite topics. Money is what fueled the industrial society, but in the informational society, to fuel the power is knowledge. One now has to see a new class structure divided by those who have the information and those who must function out of ignorance. This new class has its power not from money, not from land, but from knowledge. And I'll add to that, the right kind of knowledge. Not another flat earth documentary or fifth dimensional Sasquatches. Tartaria is pretty interesting, but how many documentaries do you need to see on that? A lot of people get into what's called creative avoidance. And they spend a lot of time majoring in minor issues, minor topics, and avoiding the heavy lifting that they actually need to do. And that's part of the problem with social media and the algorithm is designed just to suck up your attention with surgical precision and distract you from what you actually need to do. But yeah, knowledge is power. I used to watch G.I. Joe as a kid all the time, and at the end of every episode they'd have this quote that went like, knowing is half the battle. What's the other half? Implementing. Well, that's a big part of it. You don't get things done. People become walking libraries of a lot of useless information, especially when we're bombarded with it. When it comes to knowledge, you should be sipping from a garden hose and not in the fountain of it, overindulging. So it keeps you distracted from learning what you actually need to learn, which is less pleasant, but you don't have to spend all your time in school, which is pretty important. I remember in high school when I always got told, oh, you got to go to university or you'll be doomed. And I used to dread that. I don't want to do that. I want to do something that leads to self-employment, because we've got to get out of this mindset of being slaves. And what they've done with the rise of the urban monoculture at the turn of the century, the 19th century, is people started moving away from the countryside, started moving to the city, getting jobs at big corporations or the government. And then they got that routine 2-week check, not too many obligations, medical, dental, employment insurance, feeling kind of cushy, provides enough to work all day, drive home, and enjoy some pizza pops and Cheetos as you watch TV. It's a golden set of handcuffs, and people have gotten themselves so entwined in the system. Yeah, it's going to be hard to get out of it. You know, part of the process of building a life raft is also reducing our dependence on the system. That's the exact thing they don't want us to do, of course. So in future videos, I'll keep on discussing different ways that the free market will actually help us out. But I want to provide this in little chunk bits so it's not too overwhelming. So until then, adapt and overcome. North American currencies are on the cusp of hyperinflation. You should consider protecting your wealth with gold and silver bullion that can provide at wholesale prices. Just reach out to me or click the link below.